the silent cry, the void between stars, held no mercy for the dying. Elder Cathara pressed his weathered hand against the cold metal wall of the refugee ship, whispered dawn, and felt the vibrations of failing engines. The ship shuddered with each a labored breath of its ancient power core, a sound that had become as familiar as his own heartbeat over the past 3 decades of running. Through the observation deck's cracked viewport, he could see the other 14 vessels of their convoy, once proud ships of the Zelani Confederation, now reduced to hollow shells carrying the last fragments of his people. 15,000 souls scattered across these dying vessels, all that remained of a civilization that had once spanned 47 worlds. The Zelani had been an old race when humanity was still learning to make fire. Their crystal cities had hummed with the music of advanced technology. Their vast libraries contained the wisdom of millennia, and their explorers had mapped distant galaxies. They had been peaceful, curious, always reaching toward the next star with wonder rather than conquest. That curiosity had been their downfall. In the ship's lower decks, young Nera crawled through maintenance tunnels barely wide enough for her. Slender frame, sparks showered from failing circuits as she worked, her delicate fingers dancing over jury-rigged repairs that held their world together with hope and desperation. At only 40 years old, she was considered barely an adult by Zelani standards, yet she had become their most crucial engineer, simply by being one of the few who still remembered how their old technology worked. Power coupling is failing on Deck 7, she called into her communicator, her voice strained with exhaustion. I can give you maybe 6 more hours before we lose life support in that section. Elder Cathara's response crackled through static. Do what you can, child. We are almost to the rendezvous coordinates. Rendezvous with what? Nera wondered bitterly. They had been following ancient star maps toward a region of space that their long-dead explorers had marked as promising for refuge. But that data was over 1,000 years old. For all they knew, they were fleeing toward empty space, or, worse, toward more enemies. The Devourer swarm had found them 3 decades ago, while the Zelani were conducting a deep space archaeological expedition. The first ships had appeared without warning, sleek black vessels that moved with mechanical precision. They had offered no communication, no demands, no mercy. They had simply begun to consume. The Devourers were not alive in any sense. The Zelani understood they were machines, but more than machines. They possessed a collective intelligence that spanned their entire fleet, making decisions with cold efficiency. They dismantled everything in their path, breaking down matter at the molecular level to fuel their endless reproduction and expansion. World after world had fallen. The Zelani had tried to fight, their defensive fleets engaging the swarm in desperate battles among the stars. But for every Devourer ship they destroyed, 3 more took its place, built from the remains of Zelani cities and the very planets they had called home. The evacuation had been chaos. Millions had died in the first assault waves, while others scrambled for any ship capable of faster-than-light travel. Families were separated, treasures of art and knowledge abandoned, entire populations left behind as the lucky few escaped into the dark. Now, 30 years later, the survivors moved through space like ghosts. They had stopped counting the pursuit ships that followed them, focusing only on the next jump, the next system, the next desperate hope of finding sanctuary somewhere in the vast emptiness. On the bridge of the whispered dawn, Elder Cathara studied the star charts with tired eyes. His species aged slowly, but the weight of watching his civilization die had carved deep lines in his face. His once bright blue skin had faded to pale silver, and his proud head crest drooped with exhaustion. Elder, whispered Zarin, the ship's navigator, we are approaching the coordinates. But sensors show nothing except empty space. Cathara felt his heart sink. Another dead end, another false hope. How much longer could they run? Their fuel reserves were nearly exhausted, their ships falling apart, their people losing hope with each passing day. Prepare to scan the system, he ordered quietly. Perhaps there are asteroid fields we can hide in, or a dead world where we can set down for repairs. But as their sensors swept the system, something else appeared on the displays. Ships 3. Of them, sleek and powerful, emerging from behind the system's single planet. The design was completely unknown, unlike anything in Zelani records. Unknown vessels Cathara transmitted on standard frequencies. We are peaceful refugees seeking sanctuary. We have no hostile intentions. The response came inaccented, but clear galactic standard. Refugee vessels. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earthship Guardian. We received your distress signal. Please state your situation and intentions. Earth. Cathara searched his memory. Yes, he remembered. Now, a young species from a small blue world, recently discovered by galactic scouts. They were supposed to be primitives, barely capable of faster-than-light travel. Yet these ships looked anything but primitive. Captain Chen stood on the bridge of the Guardian, studying the alien vessels through the tactical display. Her ship was one of Earth's newest designs, a heavy cruiser built for deep space patrol and first contact scenarios. Beside her, Commander Blake Torres frowned at the sensor. Readings, 15 ships, all showing signs of severe damage and power failures, he reported. Design suggests high technology, but everything's jury-rigged and failing. They're running on fumes. Captain Chen nodded grimly. The distress signal had reached Earth 3 days ago, a complex mathematical sequence that had taken their best linguists and computers to decode. The message was simple but desperate. We are the last. We need help. Any who hear this, please respond. Earth's response had been immediate. The Guardian and to support vessels had been dispatched to the coordinates, a journey that pushed their new faster-than-light drives to their limits. Humanity was still new to galactic politics, but they had learned enough to know that helping refugees was both a moral duty and a way to build positive relationships with other species. Captain Chen, Elder Cathara's voice, continued, we are the last survivors of the Zelani Confederation. Our worlds have been destroyed by an enemy we call the Devourer Swarm. We have been running for 30 of your years, seeking any safe haven in the galaxy. Chen felt a chill run down her spine. 30 years of running, an entire civilization reduced to 15 failing ships. She had seen war, had commanded vessels in the border conflicts with aggressive neighbors, but the scale of this tragedy was beyond her experience. Elder Cathara, she replied, this is Captain Chen. We are prepared to offer assistance. Do you have any immediate needs? Medical supplies, fuel, repairs? There was a long pause before Cathara responded, and when he did, his voice carried a weight of disbelief. Captain, you would help us, knowing that we are pursued by enemies that have destroyed entire star systems. Chen looked around her bridge, at her crew, young faces, determined expressions, the kind of people who had volunteered for deep space service to explore the unknown and help where they could. She thought of Earth, safe and growing, protected by increasingly powerful fleets. These aliens had no such protection. Elder, she said firmly, humanity has a saying, no one fights alone. If you're willing to accept our help, we'll do everything we can. The gratitude in Cathara's response was overwhelming. Captain Chen, you may have just saved the last children of an ancient people. We accept your offer with hearts full of hope. But even as the words were spoken, new contacts appeared. On the Guardian's long-range sensors, dark shapes moving between the stars, following the refugee fleet's trail with mechanical precision. Commander Torres spoke quietly. Captain, we have multiple contacts inbound. 20 ships, design unknown, but they're moving fast and they're armed. Chen felt her pulse quicken. This was it, then. The moment when humanity would stand between the hunted and their hunters, between the weak and the strong, between hope and extinction. All ships, battle stations, she ordered calmly. Signal the Zilani convoy to move behind our formation. We're about to meet these devourers. The Guardian's crew moved with practiced efficiency, weapons coming online, shields powering up, engine output increasing to combat levels. Through the viewports, they could see the alien refugee ships slowly moving into position behind them, their damaged hulls limping through space like wounded birds seeking shelter. Elder Cathara watched from his bridge as the human ships took position between his convoy and the approaching threat. 3 vessels against 20. It seemed impossible, suicidal, yet these humans showed no hesitation. Why do they do this? Whispered Navigator Zarin. They barely know us. They owe us nothing. Cathara thought of the stories his people told. Legends of heroes who stood against the dark not for reward but because it was right. He had always thought such tales were fantasy. Perhaps he had been wrong. Because, he said softly, they are what we once dreamed of becoming. The Devourer ships closed in, their hulls gleaming like black mirrors that reflected no light. They moved in perfect formation. No communication between them because they shared a single consciousness spanning their entire fleet. To them, the human ships were simply obstacles to be removed before they could continue their harvest of Zilani survivors. Captain Chen studied the approaching enemy through her tactical display. The ships were sleek and deadly, obviously designed for one purpose: destruction. Their energy signatures were unlike anything in Earth's databases, suggesting technology that operated on principles humanity didn't yet understand. They're not responding to any communication attempts, reported the communications officer. It's like they're not even receiving our signals. Or they just don't care, muttered Torres. Captain, these things don't look like they're interested. In talking, the first Devourer ship opened fire without warning. A beam of crimson energy lanced across space toward the Guardian's bow. Chen's crew reacted instantly, throwing the ship into evasive maneuvers while returning fire with their own weapons. The battle for the last. Sanctuary had begun. Shield of Stars. The Guardian shuddered under the Devourer assault, her shields blazing. With absorbed energy, Captain Chen gripped her command chair as another volley of crimson beams hammered their defenses. The bridge lights flickered and sparks showered from overloaded circuits. Shields at 70%, Commander Torres reported, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. Return fire is having minimal effect. Their whole armor is absorbing most of our energy weapons. Chen watched the tactical display as the 20 Devourer ships spread into an attack formation. Each vessel moved with perfect coordination, their collective intelligence allowing them to anticipate and counter every human maneuver. But humanity had always been adaptable. All ships, concentrate fire on the lead vessel, she ordered. Full spread, everything we have. The Guardians, sister ships, the destroyer Valiant, and the cruiser Defiance added their firepower to the barrage. Dozens of missiles and energy beams converged on a single devourer ship, overwhelming its defenses in a coordinated strike that tore through its hull and sent it spinning into the void. For a moment, hope flared on the Guardian's bridge. Then the damaged devourer ship began to glow. Other ships in the swarm moved toward it, their hulls opening to reveal mechanical tendrils that reached out and began dismantling their wounded companion. Within minutes, the destroyed ship's materials had been absorbed and redistributed, making the remaining vessels stronger. "Dear God," whispered the tactical officer, "they're recycling their losses, getting stronger from their defeats." Behind the human battle line, Elder Cathara watched the impossible unfold. The humans were fighting with courage that took his breath away, but they were facing an enemy that learned and adapted with every exchange. The Devourers had consumed entire civilizations with these tactics. Yet something was different this time. The human ships moved with an unpredictability that seemed to confuse the swarm. Where other species had relied on superior technology or greater numbers, humanity used creativity and stubborn determination. Young Nera worked frantically in the maintenance tunnels of the Whispered Dawn, rerouting power from non-essential systems to boost their communication array. If they were going to die here, at least they could ensure the humans knew what they were fighting. "Captain Chen," Elder Cathara transmitted, "you must understand what you face. The Devourers do not simply destroy, they consume and learn. Every ship you damage makes the swarm smarter, stronger." Chen's response came immediately. "Understood, Elder, but we've faced impossible odds before. Humanity has a talent for finding third options when the first two don't work." As if to prove her words, the human formation suddenly scattered, each ship moving in a different direction. The Devourers, expecting coordinated tactics, hesitated for a fraction of a second. In that moment of confusion, the Valiant dove beneath. The swarm had launched a spread of missiles, not at the enemy ships, but at the space around them. The missiles detonated in brilliant flashes that lit up the darkness. But these weren't conventional explosives. They were electromagnetic pulse charges designed to disrupt electronic systems. The Devourer ships, so dependent on their collective consciousness, suddenly found their coordination shattered. "Now," Chen shouted, "hit them while they're blinded." The human fleet reformed and struck with surgical precision, targeting the isolated Devourer ships before they could re-establish their network connection. 3 enemy vessels were destroyed in quick succession, their hulls torn apart by concentrated fire, but the victory was short-lived. The remaining Devourers adapted to the electromagnetic disruption, their hulls beginning to glow with protective fields that neutralized the pulse effects. Worse, new contacts were appearing on long-range sensors. "Captain," the communications officer reported, voice tight with tension, "I'm receiving a transmission from Earth Command. Admiral Webb's fleet is inbound, but they're still 6 hours away. We have 40 more enemy ships approaching from the outer system." Chen felt her heart sink. 60 Devourer ships against her small force. Even with reinforcements coming, the numbers were overwhelming. But she had made a promise to protect the Zilani refugees, and humanity's word meant something. "Signal the convoy," she ordered. "Tell them to prepare for faster-than-light jump. We'll buy them time to escape." Elder Cathara's response came immediately. "Captain Chen, we will not abandon those who stand for us. The Zilani may be few, but we still remember honor." Before Chen could reply, young Nera's voice crackled through the communication channel. "Captain, I have an idea. Our old technology, it might be compatible with your systems. If we can link our remaining power cores to your ships, we could boost your shields and weapons. Chen looked at Torres, who was already running calculations. It's possible, he said. Risky as hell, but possible. If we can create stable power transfer beams, we could effectively double our defensive capabilities. The plan was desperate, dangerous, and had never been attempted between species with completely different technological bases. It was also their only chance do it, Chen decided. All Zilani ships capable of power transfer, prepare to link with our vessels. We're going to show these devourers what happens when two species fight as one. The next 20 minutes were a frantic dance of engineering and improvisation. Nira worked with Dr. Lisa Park, the Guardian's chief science officer, to establish power transfer protocols. The process required precise calculations to prevent feedback explosions that could destroy both fleets. Power coupling established with the Whispered Dawn, Park reported. We're showing a 30% increase in shield strength and weapon output. Similar connections formed between other human and Zilani vessels. The refugee ships, their hulls battered and systems failing, suddenly began to glow with shared energy. It was more than just a tactical advantage. It was a symbol of two species choosing to stand together against the dark. The 40 new Devourer ships arrived just as the power linkage was completed. The swarm's collective intelligence immediately recognized the threat posed by this unprecedented cooperation. The enemy formation shifted, prioritizing the destruction of the hybrid humans fleet over the simple harvest of refugees. What followed was a battle unlike anything recorded in galactic history. The Devourers attacked with mechanical precision, but the Allied fleet responded with creative tactics that no single species could have achieved alone. Zilani sensor technology, far more advanced than Earth systems, provided targeting data that let human weapons strike with impossible accuracy. Human shield harmonics, boosted by Zilani power cores, created defensive barriers that could withstand the swarm's most devastating weapons. Commander Torres coordinated the tactical response from the Guardian's bridge, his commands flowing to both human and Zilani vessels. Zilani ships, Silverwing and Dancing Star, boost power to the Defiance's forward shields. Valiant, prepare for attack, run Alpha 7 on the enemy's left flank. The battle was brutal and desperate. Ships were damaged, lives were lost, but the Alliance held. Every time a Devourer ship fell, the survivors learned from its destruction, adapting new countermeasures. But humanity and the Zilani adapted too, their combined experience and determination creating solutions that neither species could have found alone. Young Zeph, barely 20 years old by Zilani standards, found himself working alongside Lieutenant Sarah Kim on the Guardian's weapons systems. Despite the language barriers and vastly different backgrounds, they communicated through shared purpose, their hands working together to calibrate targeting computers and route power to the ship's main batteries. Your people fight with such passion, Zeph marveled during a brief lull in the battle. We Zilani have always been peaceful. I never understood what warriors felt until now. Kim smiled grimly as she adjusted the targeting parameters. We're not warriors by choice. We're protectors by necessity. There's a difference. The tide of battle began to turn when Admiral Marcus Webb's reinforcement fleet arrived ahead of schedule. 12 additional human warships, including the massive dreadnought Indomitable, dropped out of faster-than-light travel and immediately joined the engagement. Admiral Webb, a grizzled veteran with 40 years of military experience, took one look at the tactical situation and made an instant decision. All ships, full assault formation. Target the largest concentrations of enemy vessels. The Guardians done the impossible here. Let's finish the job. The combined firepower of the full human fleet, boosted by Zilani power cores and guided by alien sensor technology, proved overwhelming. The Devourer swarm, designed to consume isolated civilizations, had never faced this level of coordinated resistance from multiple species working in perfect harmony. One by one, the black ships fell. Their collective intelligence, so efficient at processing tactical data, began to fracture under the unpredictable creativity of the Human-Zilani alliance. The swarm had learned to counter every known military tactic in the galaxy, but it had never encountered the uniquely human concept of protecting those who could not protect themselves. The final Devourer ship was destroyed just as Earth's sun rose over the Guardians' battered hull. The victory had cost them dearly. 3 human ships were lost, along with 2 Zilani vessels that had suffered critical damage during the power-sharing process. But the survivors had prevailed against impossible odds. Captain Chen stood on her bridge, looking out at the mixed fleet of human and Zilani vessels. The refugees were no longer running. For the first time in 30 years, they were safe. Elder Cathara's transmission carried a weight of gratitude that transcended language barriers. Captain Chen, Admiral Webb, brave humans, all, you have given my people something we thought lost forever. Hope for tomorrow. Admiral Webb's response was characteristically direct. Elder, humanity has plenty of room in our space. We've got colony worlds that could use the wisdom of an ancient civilization, and research stations that could benefit from your technology. If you're interested, we'd be honored to offer the Zilani a permanent home. The offer sparked intense discussion among the Zilani survivors. Some feared becoming dependent on another species' protection. Others worried about losing what remained of their cultural identity. But Nira, the young engineer who had helped forge the alliance between the fleets, spoke for many of her generation. Elder, she said quietly, these humans didn't help us because they wanted something in return. They helped us because it was right. Maybe it's time we stopped running and started building again, together. The vote was unanimous. The Zilani would accept humanity's offer of sanctuary, but more than that, they would contribute their knowledge and skills to this growing alliance. The refugee fleet would be disbanded, its people spread across human colonies where they could rebuild their lives while sharing the wisdom of their ancient civilization. Dr. Park was already making plans for joint research projects. The combination of human innovation and Zilani scientific knowledge could lead to breakthroughs that would benefit both species. Admiral Webb spoke of mixed crews on future exploration missions, humans and Zilani working together to explore the galaxy's mysteries. But perhaps the most important change was simpler than technology or tactics. It was the knowledge that in a galaxy full of predators and darkness, some species still believed in protecting those who needed protection. The Zilani had found more than sanctuary with humanity. They had found kindred spirits. As the combined fleet prepared to depart for Earth's territory, Elder Cathara stood once more at his ship's observation deck. But this time, he wasn't looking back at pursuing enemies. He was looking forward, toward a future where his people could flourish again under the protection of unlikely guardians. The last sanctuary had become the first step toward a new alliance among the stars. And in the darkness between worlds, hope burned brighter than any sun.